New Zealand First supports tougher measures to curb the worst cases of drink driving, but this bill is badly targeted and is aimed at the drink drivers who do the least harm. The bill would lower the allowable breath alcohol content from 400 to 250 micrograms and would reduce the current blood alcohol limit from 80 to 50 milligrams. Disobedience of these new limits is to be addressed only in the form of infringement notices on the grounds that they are in the less serious range of offending. And that really is the issue here, because the people in this range between the existing threshold and the new one proposed in this bill are not the people who cause most of the deaths and the injuries on New Zealand roads. So targeting these people is not likely to have the desired effect of reducing the death and injury rate on our roads to any great extent. The lower infringement limits as proposed in this bill may in fact have an unintended perverse effect, because there will be some people who will convince themselves that drinking to between an estimated blood alcohol range of 50 milligrams to 80 milligrams, or between 250 to 400 micrograms per litre of breath, when driving is an acceptable risk for them, because it is only an infringement offence for which a small fine and a few demerit points is incurred if caught. While there is evidence and research that shows driver impairment between the proposed limits and the existing limits, there is very little convincing evidence that most people are likely to harm themselves or others if they do so. Therefore, it is clear to us in New Zealand First that New Zealand's existing alcohol limits in relation to driving are unlikely to be too high, and lowering them would be unlikely to be effective. That is also the position, I understand, taken by the UK government, and their drink driving regime works well, probably because their penalties are higher. We in New Zealand First believe that a better long-term effect could be achieved firstly by increasing penalties for offending against the existing alcohol limits of 80 milligrams per 100 litres of blood and 400 micrograms of litre of breath. That's why we have adopted this policy. Secondly, we want people to clearly understand that the policy of being caught is actually a probability by having more police on the road and more random breath tests. And in that respect, I would have to completely disagree with the previous speaker, who felt that there were sufficient police on the road and sufficient done as far as breath testing is concerned. We in New Zealand First do not believe that's the case, and people still therefore think that they can get away with it. The new proposed penalties do not reflect the seriousness of the offence. The proposed breath alcohol limit will not be a criminal offence incurring the full force of the law, and instead would provide only for a small fine of $200 and 50 demerit points. And between 50 and 80 milligrams per 100 litres of blood, $500, 50 demerit points. Demerit points may eventually lead to a loss of licence, but that's something in the future for most people and doesn't have much of an immediate effect. And the fines at that level are clearly derisory and are definitely not an adequate deterrent. The public actually does want stronger action and leadership on drink driving than what this government is apparently prepared to take. New Zealand First wants penalties to reflect public opinion, and looking at the Transport Act, I see that for a first conviction, the penalty is only up to 3 months fine or 3 months imprisonment or a $4,500 fine. We think it should be at least 6 months, up to 6 months, or a fine not exceeding $6,000 for a first conviction. That's the scale of penalty which we think would actually make a difference, Mr. Chairman. So the public does want to see a tougher set of actions taken, but this bill doesn't fit that prescription. In the end, what we really need, of course, is a drinking change culture, Mr Chairman.
Dennis O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Towards a more sensible culture in terms of drinking habits, especially among young people. And to that effect, New Zealand First has recently also proposed a policy which says, especially to young people, if you are found so drunk in a public place or trespassing on private property that you are likely to be a danger to yourself or to others, then they would be committing an offence and would suffer a significant fine or period of imprisonment. That's the sort of culture, that's the sort of provision that we in New Zealand think will help change the drink culture and therefore the drink driving culture in New Zealand. This bill is not enough. It's wimpy, it's weak for a government that says it's going to get tough on crime. This goes totally in the other direction and is not what the public would see as being anywhere near adequate as a measure to try and reduce the road toll from drink driving in New Zealand. The penalties must reinforce and underpin the fact that drink driving is a serious offence. It must never be seen to be something you can do and just get a small fine or a few demerit points. That's going to have the wrong effect in people's minds. So for that reason, above all, New Zealand First opposes this bill. It's wimpy, it's weak, it's soft on law and order, and it's not where New Zealand First wants to go. So, Mr Chairman, to summarise, New Zealand First will vote against the bill because we want to see better detection of drink driving with more police on the road and more breath testing carried out so people will know their chances of getting away with it are too slim to try it. That's what would be effective. And we want to target the offenders who do real harm. Those are the people who drink at over 80 milligrams per 100 litres of blood, and we want those people to suffer much tougher penalties so that it will be a genuine deterrent. We'll be voting against this bill.
I call Darian Fenton.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Well, I'm very pleased